Hello, hello, hello. And welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome back to Through the Bible with Yolanda Worldwide here on YouTube. I sure hope that you are one who has been joining me for this Through the Bible series. I want to go ahead and say welcome to those of you who are joining me as a replay viewer of this premiere. I am glad, even if you stop by, I don't care when in the future. I'm just so glad that you're here. I just want to make sure you know this is a segment as part of a Through the Bible series, and we are reading through Genesis to Revelation. So make sure you get to take in the entirety of the Bible as we're going through, and you can always go back to what you have missed and check it off in the Through the Bible playlist. If you're brand new, again, welcome. I'm glad that you're here. Make sure you click the subscribe button and enable the notifications by clicking on the little bell. For those of you who are here for the premiere live, you know you're my people. Go ahead and greet me in whatever way you do in your part of the world. Let me know where in the world you're joining in from. Help me by clicking the little thumbs up on the screen and share this broadcast. And just so that I know that you're plugged in with me, go ahead and give me a hashtag Through the Bible in the chat. So I'm going to dive right on in so we can get through. We are in what I would consider one of those books that could get a little bit challenging from time to time, but we're going to read through it because we're reading all the way through the Bible. We are starting the book of Leviticus today, and reminder, we are reading all the way through in the Message version of the Bible. So let's dive in, starting off talking about whole burnt offerings in chapter 1 of the book of Leviticus. God called Moses and spoke to him from the tent meeting. Speak to the people of Israel. Tell them, when anyone presents an offering to God, present an animal from either the herd or the flock. If the offering is a whole burnt offering from the herd, present a male without a defect at the entrance to the tent of meeting, that it may be accepted by God. Lay your hand on the head of the whole burnt offering so that it may be accepted on your behalf to make atonement for you. Slaughter the bull in God's presence. Aaron's sons, the priests, will make an offering of the blood by splashing it against all sides of the altar that stands at the entrance to the tent of meeting. Next, skin the whole burnt offering and cut it up. Aaron's sons, the priests, will prepare a fire on the altar, carefully laying out the wood, and then arrange the body parts, including the head and the suet on the wood prepared for the fire on the altar. Scrub the entrails and legs clean. The priest will burn it all on the altar, a whole burnt offering, a fire gift, a pleasing fragrance to God. If the whole burnt offering comes from the flock, whether sheep or goat, present a male without defect, slaughter it on the north side of the altar in God's presence. The sons of Aaron, the priest, will throw the blood against the sides of the altar, cut it up, and the priest will arrange the pieces, including the head and the suet, on the wood prepared for burning on the altar. Scrub the entrails and legs clean. The priest will offer it all, burning it on the altar, a whole burnt offering, a fire gift, a pleasing fragrance to God. If a bird is presented to God for the whole burnt offering, it can be either a dove or a pigeon. The priest will bring it to the altar, wring off its neck, and burn it on the altar. But he will first drain the blood on the side of the altar, remove the gizzard and its contents, and throw them on the east side of the altar where the ashes are piled. Then rip it open by its wings, but leave it in one piece and burn it on the altar on the wood prepared for the fire, a whole burnt offering, a fire gift, a pleasing fragrance to God. Grain offering, chapter 2. When you present a grain offering to God, use fine flour, pour oil on it, put incense on it, and bring it to Aaron's sons, the priests. One of them will take a handful of the fine flour and oil with all the incense and burn it on the altar for a memorial, a fire gift, a pleasing fragrance to God. The rest of the grain offering is for Aaron and his sons, a most holy part of the fire gifts to God. When you present a grain offering of oven-baked loaves, use fine flour mixed with oil, but no yeast. Or present wafers made without yeast and spread with oil. If you bring a grain offering cooked on a griddle, use fine flour mixed with oil, but without yeast. Crumble it and pour oil on it. It's a grain offering. If you bring a grain offering deep fried in a pan, make it of fine flour with oil. Bring the grain offering you make from these ingredients and present it to the priest. He will bring it to the altar, break off a memorial piece from the grain offering and burn it on the altar, a fire gift, a pleasing fragrance to God. The rest of the grain offering is for Aaron and his sons, a most holy part of the gifts to God. All the grain offerings that you present to God must be made without yeast. You must never burn any yeast or honey as a fire gift to God. You may offer them to God as an offering of first fruits, but not on the altar as a pleasing fragrance. Season every presentation of your grain offering with salt. Don't leave the salt of the covenant with your God out of your grain offerings. Present all your offerings with salt. If you present a grain offering of first fruits to God, bring crushed heads of the new grain roasted. Put oil and incense on it. It's a grain offering. The priest will burn some of the mixed grain and oil with all the incense as a memorial, a fire gift to God. The peace offering, chapter 3. If your offering is a peace offering and you present an animal from the herd, either male or female, it must be an animal without any defect. Lay your hand on the head of your offering and slaughter it at the entrance of the tent of meeting. Aaron's sons, the priests, will throw the blood on all sides of the altar as a fire gift to God. From the peace offering, present all the fat that covers or is connected to the entrails, the two kidneys, and the fat around them at the loins, and the lobe of the liver that is removed along with the kidneys. Aaron and his sons will burn it on the altar along with the whole burnt offering that is on the wood prepared for the fire, a fire gift, a pleasing fragrance to God. If your peace offering to God comes from the flock, bring a male or female without defect. If you offer a lamb, offer it to God. Lay your hand on the head of your offering and slaughter it at the tent of meeting. The sons of Aaron will throw its blood on all sides of the altar as a fire gift to God from the peace offering. Present its fat, the entire fat tail, cut off close to the backbone, all the fat on and connected to the entrails, the two kidneys, and the fat around them on the loins, the lobe of the liver, which is removed along with the kidneys. The priest will burn it on the altar, a meal, a fire gift to God. If the offering is a goat, bring it into the presence of God. Lay your hand on its head and slaughter it in front of the tent of meeting. Aaron's sons will throw the blood on all sides of the altar as a fire gift to God. Present the fat that covers and is connected to the entrails, the two kidneys and the fat which is around them on the loins, and the lobe of the liver which is removed along with the kidneys. The priests will burn them on the altar, a meal, a fire gift, a pleasing fragrance. All the fat belongs to God. This is the fixed rule down through the generations, wherever you happen to live. Don't eat the fat, don't eat the blood, none of it. The absolution offering. Chapter 4. God spoke to Moses, tell the Israelites when a person sins unintentionally by straying from any of God's commands, breaking what must not be broken. If it's the anointed priest who sins and so brings guilt on the people, he is to bring a bull without defect to God as an absolution offering for the sin he has committed. Have him bring the bull to the entrance of the tent of meeting in the presence of God. Lay his hand on the bull's head and slaughter the bull before God. He is then to take some of the bull's blood, bring it into the tent of meeting, dip his finger in the blood, and sprinkle some of it 7 times before God, before the curtain of the sanctuary. He is to smear some of the blood on the horns of the altar of fragrant incense before God, which is in the tent of meeting. He is to pour the rest of the bull's blood out at the base of the altar of whole burnt offering at the entrance of the tent of meeting. He is to remove all the fat from the bull of the absolution offering, the fat which covers and is connected to the entrails, the 2 kidneys, and the fat that is around them at the loins, and the lobe of the liver, which he takes out along with the kidneys, the same procedure as when the fat is removed from the bull of the peace offering. Finally, he is to burn all this on the altar of burnt offering. Everything else, the bull's hide, meat, head, legs, organs, and guts, he is to take outside the camp to a clean place where the ashes are dumped, and is to burn it on a wood fire. If the whole congregation sins unintentionally by straying from one of the commandments of God that must not be broken, they become guilty, even though no one is aware of it. When they do become aware of the sin they've committed, the congregation must bring a bull as an absolution offering and present it at the tent of meeting. The elders of the congregation will lay their hands on the bull's head in the presence of God, and one of them will slaughter it before God. The anointed priest will then bring some of the blood into the tent of meeting, dip his finger in the blood, and sprinkle some of it 7 times before God in front of the curtain. He will smear all of the blood on the horns of the altar, which is before God in the tent of meeting, and pour the rest of it at the base of the altar of whole burnt offering at the entrance of the tent of meeting. He will remove all the fat and burn it on the altar. He will follow the same procedure with this bull as with the bull for the absolution offering. The priest makes atonement for them, and they are given. They then will take the bull outside the camp and burn it just as they burned the first bull. It's the absolution offering for the congregation. When a ruler sins unintentionally by straying from the commands of his God, which it must be broken, he is guilty. When he becomes aware of the sin he has committed, he must bring a goat for his offering, a male without any defect. Lay his hand on the head of the goat and slaughter it in the place where they slaughter the whole burnt offering in the presence of God. It's an absolution offering. The priest will then take some of the blood of the absolution offering with his finger, smear it on the horns of the altar of whole burnt offering, and pour the rest at the base of the altar. He will burn all its fat on the altar, the same as with the fat of the peace offering. The priest makes atonement for him on account of his sin, and he is forgiven. When an ordinary member of the congregation sins unintentionally, straying from one of the commandments of God, which must be broken, he is guilty. Must not be broken, he is guilty. When he is made aware of his sin, he shall bring a goat, a female without any defect, and offer it for his sin. Lay his hand on the head of the absolution offering, the slaughter, and slaughter it at the place of whole burnt offering. The priest will take some of its blood with his finger, smear it on the horns of the altar of whole burnt offering, and pour the rest at the base of the altar. Finally, he'll take out all the fat, the same as with the peace offerings, and burn it on the altar for a pleasing fragrance to God. In this way, the priest makes atonement for him and he's forgiven. If he brings a lamb for an absolution offering, he shall present a female without any defect, lay his hand on the head of the absolution offering and slaughter it at the same place they slaughter the whole burnt offering. The priest will take some of the blood of the absolution offering with his finger, smear it on the horns of the altar of burnt offering, and pour the rest at the base of the altar. He shall remove all the fat, the same as for the lamb of the peace offering. Finally, the priest will burn it on the altar on top of the gifts to God. In this way, the priest makes atonement for him on account of his sins, and he's forgiven. Chapter 5, and we'll finish with that for today. If you sin by not stepping up and offering yourselves as a witness to something you've heard or seen in cases of wrongdoing, you'll be held responsible. Or if you touch anything ritually unclean, like the carcass of an unclean animal, wild or domestic, or a dead reptile, and you weren't aware of it at the time, but you're contaminated and you're guilty. Or if you touch human uncleanness, any sort of ritually contaminating uncleanness, and you're not aware of it at the time, but later you realize it and you're guilty. Or if you impulsively swear to do something, whether good or bad, some rash oath that just pops up, and you aren't aware of what you've done at the time, but later you come to realize it and you're guilty in any of these cases. When you are guilty, immediately confess the sin that you've committed and bring as your penalty to God for the sin you have committed a female lamb or goat from the flock for an absolution offering. In this way, the priest will make atonement for your sin. If you can't afford a lamb, bring as your penalty to God for the sin you have committed 2 doves or 2 pigeons, one for the absolution offering and the 2 other for the whole burnt offering. Bring them to the priest, who will first offer the one for the absolution offering. He'll wring its neck but not sever it. Splash some of the blood on the absolution offering against the altar and squeeze the rest of it out at the base. Its absolution offering. He'll then take the second bird and offer it as a whole burnt offering, following the procedure step by step. In this way, the priest will make atonement for your sin and you're forgiven. If you cannot afford the 2 doves or pigeons, bring 2 quarts of fine flour for your absolution offering. Don't put oil or incense on it. It's an absolution offering. Bring it to the priest. He'll take a handful from it as a memorial and burn it on the altar with the gifts for God. It's an absolution offering. The priest will make atonement for you and any of these sins you've committed, and you're forgiven. The rest of the offering belongs to the priest, the same as with the grain offering. Compensation offering. God spoke to Moses when a person betrays his trust and unknowingly sins by straying against any of the holy things he is to bring as his penalty to God a ram without any defect from the flock. The value of the ram assessed in shekels according to the sanctuary shekel for a compensation offering. He is to make additional compensation for the sin he has committed against any holy thing by adding 20% to the ram and giving it to the priest. Thus, the priest will make atonement for him with the ram of the compensation offering, and he's forgiven. If anyone sins by breaking any of the covenants of God, which must not be broken, but without being aware of it at the time, the moment he does realize his guilt, he is held responsible. He is to bring to the priest a ram without any defect, assessed at the value of the compensation offering. Thus, the priest will make atonement for him for his error that he was unaware of, and he's forgiven. It is a compensation offering. He was surely guilty before God. We just read the first 5 chapters of Leviticus. I'm going to cut it right there. We'll pick back up tomorrow. And remember, if you missed any part of this, you can go back to Through the Bible playlist. And if you happen to miss Morning Stir for today, head on over to the Morning Stir playlist and get yourself caught up on that as well. But for today, be blessed. I love you with the love of Jesus, and I'll see you all again tomorrow.